Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the series on Voice Gateway. Today I'm going to show you how to install and configure Voice Gateway with Watson Virtual Agent. So the installation and configuration is documented, but the documentation involves docs from a number of different places, not just IBM. And even the IBM documents for this are kind of scattered in different various spots. So what I've done is underneath the video I've put all the different links that I've collected and put them in the order that you can follow them. So if you go through and you follow those links, you should be able to follow the steps in order to install and configure Voice Gateway on your own. And then with the help of this video, I'm going to show you some of the gotchas and some of the other pieces in the documentation that may not be spelled out very clearly. A full installation will take, I'd say, plan about an hour at least. If you are familiar with the tools that we're going to talk about today. If you're not familiar with the tools, then it may take you a little bit longer. So plan accordingly. And because of that, I'm not going to actually do a complete installation here today. I am going to just kind of take you through some of the pitfalls and put you in the right place. So hopefully, at the end of this, you'll have it installed and configured. As always, feel free to write me with any kind of questions that you might have. Okay, so Voice Gateway, real quick. What is it? It basically allows us to connect telephone system, be it public or private, to our different kinds of Watson services. And the use case that we're going to do today is called cognitive self-service. So it basically allows us to dial a telephone number, go through Voice Gateway, and talk to Watson with our voice. So Watson conversation with our voice, just as we would an actual agent, a human agent. We're going to do this with a virtual agent. And then very quickly, kind of the architecture behind this. You can run Voice Gateway either on premise or in the cloud. I'm going to show you how to do this today on the cloud, which will be the Bluemix cloud, and we'll install it in a Kubernetes cluster on Bluemix cloud. And there's a couple different pieces to Voice Gateway, and we'll talk about these when we actually get to the configuration of this. The SIP trunk is a very important piece, so you're going to need some way to go ahead and connect telephone system to Voice Gateway. That's where the SAP trunk comes into play. I'm going to use Twillio service that's on Bluemix in order to do this. There's other ways you can do it. I know people with Linux have used something called LinPhone in order to do this as well. There may be other ones that are out there. Today I'm going to use Twillio and show you a little bit about that and some of the pitfalls. And then Bluemix, you'll need text-to-speech, speech-to-text, and then a conversation service and or Watson Virtual Agent service in order to actually have your conversation. Okay, so with that, there are a number of different types of command line interfaces that you're going to install. First, I would say you might want to just go ahead and download Voice Gateway. So there's a link underneath this again where you can download the Voice Gateway from. Voice Gateway itself is free for development purposes, so I'd say go ahead and download it from Git, and then go ahead and expand that file. You'll have something similar to this called sample Voice Gateway master. Put that on your file system. When you expand it, you'll see a number of different kinds of folders that are in here. And one of the things I will point out that's interesting, if you don't have a virtual agent set up and you just want to use conversation service, but you don't even have a conversation flow dialog created yet, it comes with some sample ones that you can import into that as well. So that's kind of nice. All right, so after we've done that, we need to go ahead and set up some command line tools. So there's, again, documentation under this on how to do that. You're going to need to install the Bluemix command line interface, and you may or may not have that on your system already. If you go to a prompt and you type bx, if you get something like this similar, then that means you have it installed on your system, so you're good to go. If you don't, then you're going to need to install that and configure it as well. One of the things people ask a lot of times is, I thought we were using Cloud Foundry, the CF commands to do this. Really, with Bluemix now, growing well beyond Cloud Foundry, IBM has created a Bluemix command line interface, and that's really the direction for the future to do command interfaces. You can still run Cloud Foundry commands with Bluemix. So if I do it, BXCF, I can still run my Cloud Foundry commands in a Bluemix context. But really, as you'll see going forward, doing more and more command line, the Bluemix command line interface is really the way you want to go. So we install that. We install Docker. When you install Docker, you'll have a neat little, kind of a icon here. And that you'll see that it's installed. It'll say Docker is running. So we'll do that. That's pretty straightforward, and again, documented well. Kubernetes you'll need to install. And once you have it installed, do kube control, and you'll see that, okay, that works. So now I have that on my command line. That's really easy. It's again, a very simple install, to do. And you also need to install one more tool called Calico, and you do Calico control, and that's available as well, and easy to install. So all those, again, I have documented in the video here. Underneath the video that's playing, you'll have all the links to how to actually do that. So once you get all these different kinds of command line tools installed, you'll need to create a Kubernetes cluster. You can do that command line, or you can do that through through your Bluemix console. Once you do it on the command line, I can type my clusters, and then it should show up there. I have one cluster called TS cluster. For account for Bluemix, you get one free cluster. It's kind of limited in the amount of CPUs and all that kind of stuff it'll have, but you still get one free cluster, and if you're not using it, then this is a great way you can use it is with Voice Gateway. Actually install it on there. So that'll take a little while to actually create the cluster after you did that. It just takes a while to run in the background. When you finally run and it says it's in normal state, you're ready to go. So one of the things you'll have to do is do a cluster config and a cluster name every time you're going to use this. And basically this connects your Kubernetes with the Bluemix context. So you basically want to copy and paste this, export, and then you're good to go. So it just basically setting up an environment variable for you, but it's very important in order to do anytime you're going to use Kubernetes within the Bluemix context. Okay, so we've done that. You're also going to need to run Calico and configure a Calico YAML file. With that, if I go into my directory, you'll see it in here. And you don't need to make any kind of changes to this. Just run the Calico YAML file from the command line. Do a Calico control -f, the Calico YAML. It'll run. Very easy to do. But basically, what Calico does is set up networking policies for you. So you'll definitely need to do that. So just some of the different kind of configuration things that we need to do ahead of time before we can actually start installing this. Next, you're going to need to create an SIP trunk. So what actually is that? I'll put this URL in there as well. Create a Twilio account. Twilio has a free service that you can use kind of as a trial. And then within that, there's a lot of different kinds of options. Basically, you want to create an elastic SIP trunk. You can do this right off the Twilio dashboard and console. And what that is, some people have been asking, is if I look at it kind of from a diagram point of view, I have a public telephone system, I have the Twilio platform, and then I have this trunk in the middle. And then you're going to want to create an origination endpoint that connects to communications infrastructure. Here is the voice gateway. So when I get a phone call, it goes to Twilio. Twilio knows to forward it through the trunk to our voice gateway, and then voice gateway takes care of everything else, kind of for us in the background. So really, the two or three kind of main things I need to do after I create an SIP trunk, I need to one, get a phone number. So get a phone number from Twilio, and it's very easy to do. It lets you kind of pick the area that area code and all that kind of stuff. It'll tell you what phone number is available. You get a private phone number, associate the phone number with the trunk, and then when you create a cluster in Bluemix, you have a public IP address and a private IP address. You want to, in the configuration of the trunk, put the public IP address so it knows where to forward information to the gateway, to the voice gateway. That's it. So create a Twilio account, create an SIP trunk, get a private phone number, and create the origination endpoint in the trunk to point to the public IP address of your voice gateway. That's all you need to do in Twilio in order to get this to work. There's obviously a lot of other things you can do in Twilio to do logging and all those kinds of things. But that's really all you need to do for the voice gateway. So kind of once you've done that, then you're going to have to kind of go into Bluemix, and if I look at my Bluemix console, you'll need speech to text, text to speech, and then some kind of conversation service or the Watson Virtual Agent, either one. So create those. These all have free tiers to them. Here's the cluster information that will show up there after you've created your cluster. I click on that. It will allow me to get information about the cluster, and I can go to the services. I can get kind of gives me an overview of it, everything, and then if I go back, it'll actually tell me the public IP address and all those kinds of things within here. So I can find out information very easy from my console, or I could just do it from the command line too as well. In documentation links that I've listed, they show you how to do it everything through command line. So one of the things you're going to need to do after you create these services is write down all your credentials. So create something like a Word document and just copy and paste all your credentials into there. And all the services are very similar in where the credentials are. If I click on one of them, I just click on service credentials, and it'll show me the credentials here, and I just click view credentials, and it'll show me the ID and the password for each one of the different services that I need. So save all those. You'll need that for speech to text, text to speech, and either conversation or your virtual agent. So be sure you document all those pieces to it. After you've done that, now we can actually start getting ready to configure the voice gateway. So how do we configure the voice gateway? So we go back to our directory that we have, that we downloaded from Git, and since we're doing this on Kubernetes, we go in the Kubernetes folder. I'm doing it on Bluemix, so I'll go in the Bluemix folder, and you should have a deploy.json file in there. It'll have a lot of sample, kind of definitions for you. I make a copy of that, so I always have the original, and then I kind of put all the different kinds of configuration properties that are specific to my configuration, in here. So if I go ahead and take a look at that, I'll show you there's really two pieces again to the voice gateway. There's the media relay, and there's the SAP orchestrator. So most of this is already going to be filled out for you. The only stuff that you really need to fill out are the username and passwords for the speech to text, the text to speech, same thing, username, password, and and that's for the, again, the media relay. What you can do is you can give it a you can define different voices. So text to speech has different voice capabilities. If you want, a woman's voice versus a man's voice, or a one from different regions, with certain accents. And you would define that here. If you go into text to speech documentation on Bluemix, it'll actually give you the different values that you can put into here and what those different voices are. So really those are the only things I need to configure for the media relay section. And then if I go down to the SAP orchestrator section, all this stuff on my bot, my Watson Virtual Agent bot, was not, you won't see that in the default deploy.json file here. It'll be configured more toward the conversation service. So if you're going to use conversation, then fill in your credentials for conversation. If you're going to use the Watson Virtual Agent bot, delete all the different conversation entries and put in these Watson VA bot ID, client ID, and then the client secret, and then you're going to need the URL as well. So if you define all those for the Watson Virtual Agent, it will connect to a virtual agent instead of directly a conversation service. And finally, the last thing you're going to need to do to configure is this whitelist URI. So this will not be in the default deploy.json file either. You're going to need to put that in there. And you definitely want to put that in there. Basically what this is this is your telephone number that you defined in Twilio. So this obviously is not my the real number. I don't want a bunch of spam calls, so I didn't put the real number in here. But you will put your private phone number that you defined in Twilio in here. And this says that only accept phone calls from this number, for the voice gateway. So people just can't start spamming your voice gateway and you get some kind of denial of service attack on it. So it's a way to say that these are legitimate requests that are coming into the voice gateway if they're coming from this phone number, which is your private Twilio phone number. So that's it. So I defined those things. Everything else that's in here in this file, I did not really touch. I think a lot of it is good to go for you, and you can obviously, if there's other things in here like recording, if you want to record things, you can have that in there as well, and then you can play around with the different ports if you need to change any of those because of firewall settings or something like that specific to your own environment. You can do that as well. But I took it pretty much as is. Like I said, the only thing that I was changing in here, the text-to-speech, speech-to-text, and then the virtual agent, and then the whitelist. Different configuration pieces. So I do that, and then I'm ready to actually deploy this. And to deploy it, you're going to do that from a command line as well. And it's pretty straightforward. You're going to run this command here, this kube control create -f in your deploy.json file. So change directories into wherever that is that you just edited, and then run this command, and that should run pretty quickly. And that's basically all you need to do, and your voice gateway server will be set up and ready to go, and you can go ahead and start testing it out by giving it a phone call through your through your phone to the number that you defined in Twilio, and it should connect automatically for you. Again, if you needed to change anything, so anytime you change anything in this deploy.json file, you'll need to redeploy this again, and you can do that basically running your kube control again to redeploy the JSON file, and then basically doing an update to it. Since you've already created it, you want to do an update. That's basically all you need to do. So fairly straightforward. Again, I said it should take probably about an hour if you're very familiar with Kubernetes and Docker and Calico and all those kinds of things. If you're not, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer, but that's all there is to it. And you'll see part 3 of this video. I would say go ahead and check it out, and that's where I actually demo this working with Watson Virtual Agent. Thanks very much.